Hey guys, Coach here. Man, thanks for taking a few minutes and joining me. I really do appreciate it. I don't know how your early fall is emerging, but for me, it has been a battle royal of wills between that season of summer and fall. On one hand, we've had below freezing temperatures already with a low of like 26 or 27, and then highs that, well, that's those same nights they were in the 50s, high 50s. And then smack dab in the middle of this battle, suddenly summer comes rushing back in. And we had a heat wave that shattered 40-year highs all over the Northeast. We got up to 84 degrees. And the average temperature is like 62, 60 to 62, just annihilated records. So for me, as a horticulturist, as a landscaper, as a homeowner, how in the heck do you pay attention to a landscape with such volatile temperature swings? Well, here's what I've done. Maybe you need to do the same, maybe you do not. You should know the tolerances of your landscape as a homeowner, plain and simple. So what does it all mean to the landscape in my yard? Maybe yours as well. It's keep your eye on the landscape ball and stay focused on your landscape needs. That's what we're talking about here today. Let's get rocking. You know, one day I'm out there covering up cold sensitive impatiens and bringing stuff indoors for the night. And the next day I'm literally out there dragging a hose and making sure everything is wet and the sprinkler is on, and the perennials that are starting to go to sleep, they're going, what am I supposed to do? Like my daylilies. The daylilies right now are all golden yellow, and then all of a sudden 80 degrees hit, and all of a sudden a couple of bloom stalks are starting to emerge. And I'm going, this poor plant, he doesn't know whether to crap or go blind, plain and simple. Then you put on top of that, you have hot, windy conditions. We actually had a red flag warning here for 2 days. And then the dry, and then the shorter daylight temperatures, and the landscape needs absolutely abound. So in addition to the normal fall focus, where we're doing pruning, raking, winter prep, like I was out yesterday. And I'm putting in snow poles in and around some places that I'm gonna have to pay attention to when it comes to snowfall and snow maintenance and removal. Here I am in October, and I'm out there with sandals and shorts on. It's just a contradiction of seasons right now for us. So what I did do though is I'm dragging a hose. The day before this predicted heat wave was supposed to be kicking in, I drug the hose and I saturated everything. And I knew if I did, and knowing the metabolism of the plants that I have, everything's starting to slow down, even despite temperatures, because they're kind of phototopic, photosensitive, whether they kick in and are in growing mode or they're in maintenance mode and starting to descend a lot of their energy from their leaf structures down into their root systems for the winter. They can't do that if it's really dry. Dry plants, whether hot or cold, is going to result in a very stressed out plant. So before the heat wave, saturated everything, just deluge it. And I knew I would be okay. Then at the end of this heat wave, it fell off. The temperatures just tumbled. We went from 84 to 55 and heavy rains the next day and night. We got 1.5 inches of rain overnight. And we went from everything was dry as a bone, dust in the driveways, the forest was all crunchy, and boom, my pond that was down by about 1/3 filled up overnight, flowing like the dickens. Big brook down at the street, yeah, he was medium raging when I went down there the next morning. So there you go. You got to kind of stay focused as what you are supposed to do during that season when it's push me, pull you as far as summer and fall. And I've heard all kinds of stories about Indian summers and how fall kicks in and everything gets cold and then boom, in the beginning of October, here comes the Indian summer. We were pleased and not pleased at the same time with exactly that, a 3-day Indian summer in the beginning of October. So with those tasks that I mentioned earlier, pruning, raking, winter prep, finalizing any of this year's landscape projects, that has been kind of my top priority, and I would suggest it be kind of your top priority. You know, I finished the little creek bridge down here, did a little video on that. The deck is done. I am going to wait for slightly drier weather coming up, even though it's cooler, and I'm going to stain that and seal it before we get some precip, probably in about a week and a half. So I'm going to do that within the next 3 or 4 days, get some stain. And then I also did a garden box project and brought in a load of loam, and I had some bag goods to mix it in. But I'm not going to plant anything, because obviously, what are you going to plant when you got temperatures that are sub-freezing coming up the rest of the week? You're not going to plant. No, nothing. So I've made some room in the garage where I'm going to bring in some of the containerized materials that I have kind of staged up out there by the garage. And I've given them their last dose of food for the year in the form of mere acid, half strength. And they're getting yellow. The panicle hydrangeas, the hostas, they're starting to wilt down and drop leaves and go to sleep. One of the biggest things that a lot of homeowners that I have seen and that I've experienced, and that is they think as soon as the temperatures cool off, they can kick in their landscape clutch. They don't have to think about it. And one of the biggest things that gets neglected is the turf lawns in your landscape. For me, I had the sprinkler going late last week when we had that heat wave. And you could see it. You could see the wilting of various hard spots that I have out in the lawn. God, that lawn is it's nice and green, but it is a equal opportunity lawn. It has just as much low growing clovers and other stuff in it as it does grass. And I just don't have a budget right now where I can go out there and top dress it with loam and reseed it with a nice rye and Kentucky blue. I just don't have it. So it's going to have to be what it's going to have to be. But I do maintain it enough to where it doesn't get dry to the point of death. I don't want that. So sprinklers were going. And I suggest you look at your lawn as well, especially if you're not on an automated irrigation system. If you are, then it's an easy push a button and turn things on type of stuff. But if you're not, and you look at the weather forecast and you're seeing dry spots in the lawn and you don't have rain coming for any time soon, pull a hose and put a sprinkler out there for just a little while. Remember, lawns, especially cool season grasses, they kind of go into a semi-dormancy during the heat of the summer. And as soon as those temperatures cool off, they come roaring back. And the demand of the grass, when it comes roaring back for a few weeks in the fall, they're going to want water. And if not, they're going to have this rush of nutrients up into the green part. And you're going to see this growth. And then all of a sudden that growth is going to wilt because there's no longer enough moisture to support it. So take care of it. Make sure that you give little Johnny or little Janie a task of going out there and putting the sprinkler out and turning it on. Give them some responsibility to make sure that, the home lawn is still taken care of. And then if you have the heavens open up, okay, you made it through the little drought that you had and everything still looks good. Now for us here at Brook and Pond, our landscape projects are basically done for the year. Like I said earlier, we wrapped up with the bridge and the deck and the garden boxes, and that was the last landscape improvements we're going to do for this season. I have probably about a half a dozen next year that I'm going to be focusing on, but I'm not going to do anything about it right now. Irrigation, auto irrigation, will be one of the ones I focus on next year. And up here in northern Maine, I bet you couldn't throw a rock anywhere in this county and actually hit somebody with an automated irrigation system. But then again, as you drive around in July, August, September, there's a lot of dry stuff out there, especially turf grass. So I'm going to focus a little bit on that. I have some ideas and we'll see what kind of monies are going to be involved as far as moving forward with those plans. But if you do have irrigation, now is the time to where you throw the water on it, look at the weather forecast, and kind of take that gamble of, are you winterizing, getting that irrigation system put away for the year, and still maybe drag a hose if you have to, or do you keep it on and run the risk? Now, if you have anti-siphon valves and you have 26-degree temperatures like what we're going to have tonight, guaranteed you are probably going to fracture anything that is above ground. I think what I will focus on for the next few weeks is land maintenance here. We had the biggest tree on the property, biggest down in the forest. We had a huge white birch that was kind of the flagship of the view from our front slider here. It was huge, and it had developed what I later found to be heart rot fungus, and I had to knock it down. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be doing here within the next few days, is going around and knocking down some of the dead spruces, bucking up that big birch. There was a popple that was dead over by the camper. It's down now, it's bucked up, and I'll stack that up for the winter season and then split it up next spring. Or if I get a wild hair and we don't have any snow, I might split it up before the snow arrives. So at least you have a plan. And here's something else that I do that may sound a little OCD to some of you, but for me, it helps me stay on track, and it also helps me do little things on a regular basis, so I'm never faced with big things all at once. And that is, I just, you got your little pocket computer there that you carry around on your hip or in your back pocket. Under notes, just put landscape tasks and just make a bullet point list of the things. Go walk around together and say, hey, before Halloween or before Thanksgiving or before Christmas or whatever, you just make a list of a lot of the things that you see that you need to pay attention to. And it might be putting on some fall and winter feed on the lawn. It might be raking leaves every week. It might be, I'm tired of doing all of this and I'm going to look into outside, I'm going to source it out for all my landscape needs. Whatever it might be, some pruning maybe, some deadheading, maybe knocking down ornamental grasses a little bit for the winter time so it's a little neater. Do you have the firewood in if you burn for winter heat? Do you have the right amount of firewood available to you and it's ready to go? A lot of little things that maybe take you less than a half hour, less than 10 minutes, less than 5 minutes. How about your landscape lighting, your transformer timer, if you have such a thing? And have you changed it out on the mechanical timer so it's coming on at the right time? For us, we're now dark at before 6:30, we're dark. And so we've both had to go out there and change the timers kind of quickly over the past 6 weeks. It always catches up with you really fast when it gets darker so much earlier. And so now our transformers are kicking everything on at about 6:15, and they go off at or before midnight. And hopefully we're long asleep before that time anyway, because I'm old. So I'm kind of curious, what do you face as far as what your landscape needs are? Are they an overwhelming week-long monster that you have to wrestle to the ground and get back under control? Or do you chip away at it on a regular basis and I'm good, I'm caught up? I would be curious to know. I really would. I think people kind of fall somewhere in the middle depending on how busy their lives are. If you've got kiddos, if you've got doggos, if you've got two parents working every single day, 40 plus hours a week, guess what form of the home generally takes the first hit? Usually the landscape. Usually. It will not be in the top 3 or 5 priority of everybody's week. But there are those of you who do listen to me and watch on YouTube that it's a priority. You want your home, your yard, and everything that you do to be as top-notch as possible. And that's the arena that I play in. I went through the years with the kiddos and the doggos and the 40, 50, 60, at some times 70-hour work weeks when I was really grinding hard. But the landscape for me was always my catharsis. It was what I retreated to zone out and get some zen in my life and to see things growing and pruning and mowing and edging and watering and making sure that where I worked so hard to have and to keep was always in its best condition. It's just been a habit of mine for 40 plus years. It really has. Something else, and I share this with you as a lesson that I learned the first winter that we were up here, and that is if you have plants that are growing in your location, but they're really in their border zones, like if you're in a zone 5 and you want a zone 6 plant, I would suggest that you have it in a container first year, and then put that container in a conditioned space inside something, in a garage, in a shed, especially if it's deciduous. If it's evergreen, you're going to have to bury the container in the ground. I made the mistake of thinking, well, if I put it underneath my cargo trailer and I put up some barrier around the bottom of the trailer, I should be okay. Yeah, that did not work. I lost hostas and hydrangea and hardy hibiscus, and just everything that I put under there did not come back at all. So containerized materials, especially if you're on that border zone type of thing, make sure that you have adequate place to sink them in the ground or bring them into a protected area so that you don't waste money. You know, it's one thing to see them all beautiful in the nursery and you snag it up and you bring it home and you ooh and on and put it in a container, or you put it in the ground only to lose it that year because not just a little too cold. Now, I have a few things here that are borderline. I have some azalea that are zone 5. We are zone 4. But where they are at will be a snow-covered area. They will be totally covered by snow come January, February, March, even into early April. It will still be snow-covered. And I'm hoping that that's enough insulation to get them through. We will find out. There's also some rhododendron, but those rhododendrons, they are a zone 4. And what else do I have that is bordered right now? Nah, those are the only ones that I can think of right off the top of my head. And they've come through. They've lived since we've been here, except for those container ones that I mentioned. They've come through, but you know, the locals always say, oh, we haven't had a real winter in the past few years. And I always hear that from the locals. Wait till we have the 40 below zero days and nights, that kind of thing. Well, I don't really want that cold of temperatures, and I'm sure that's going to put a hurting on just about anybody. So I don't mind the sub-zero temperatures if it's 20 below or less, you know, going towards the warmer side of things. But the 30 and 40 below, who needs that? In that case, all I'm going to do is survive, and the landscape be damned. For many of you, like I heard from a lady from Florida today, and she is in the process of starting to plan out a landscape makeover. And she reached out looking for some design work and wanted to know some prices and other things. And if you're down in Florida and you're in zone 10, pedal to the metal. It won't matter. You can landscape 12 months out of the year down there. Somewhat envious. I mean, I came from zone 9 and I was able to landscape year round there unless it for some reason got too muddy. That was the only thing. In NorCal, in the valley, drainage sucks, and sometimes landscape projects would be put on hold because customers' yards were just a swamp. And you kind of had to pull back and say, I'll see you when it dries out a little bit. Even pumping water out of people's backyards was not enough to make it to where it was dry enough to actually work. I would just make a mess of things. But hopefully I'll be able to do some work with this lady down in Florida and see if we can't get her early to mid to late fall project up and running for her and move forward. It must be nice to be able to landscape in mid to late fall. I kind of miss that sometimes. For us, we can't plant anything now and actually expect it to be viable. You could put it in the ground, but you're asking for winter kill because it has not adapted to your yard and the soils and the sub-freezing and the ground freezing, etc. So for right now, we'll just kind of put off any more plantings until late April, May, June, July, August, September of next year. But heck, we put in enough already. We have put in hundreds of plants this year, and I cannot think off the top of my head of one plant that has failed so far. I don't think. No. I know the annuals that went in May, I mean, they didn't die. And I recently pulled them out last week, the super petunias and the wave petunia that was out there. No, I don't think we lost a darn thing. I bring this information to you because with life being as busy as it is, sometimes we take our eye off the ball. And when you do, oftentimes that's when the landscape demons come out and strike. And all of a sudden you'll go out there and you'll go, what the heck happened to the blah, blah, blah? When did that happen? And your partner goes, I don't know. I didn't notice it. I was at work, or I was at soccer practice or whatever. That's why it really helps to keep your eye on that landscape ball all the way up to Thanksgiving and beyond. When everything has dropped leaf-wise, and you look out into your front and backyard and everything is basically asleep, double check. One of the tasks that I used to love doing for folks, and that was in the fall after the leaves were down. Now, I didn't do maintenance routes. I didn't do that. But I would go out and I would bring in dump trailer loads of mulch, and I'd mulch up yards and stuff and put that brand new look, which a brand new mulch layer does to a landscape. And it just brings it back to life for the winter time. So something that you might want to consider, freshen up. I know one thing that we've done here this fall, and that is we have freshened the driveway. Brand new gravels and stuff. Even though we did it last year, we brought in more material this year because of the bridge and other stuff. So I got some extra because I love the fresh look of a new gravel driveway. And it's just special to me. And now we've gone through pretty close to 60 cubic yards of gravel. And I was able to repair the freeze washout area down by the culvert at the road. I was able to repair all that, and it looks brand new again. And I have some material left over, which I will take care of over the course of the next few days. So by doing these little things and staying focused on the landscape as much as you possibly can, it tends not to bring up the landscape demons and have that, oh crap, what happened events, because you will notice it. If you go out on a Saturday morning after you've worked hard all week and you walk around with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever and just notice things, making sure that things are still working, checking the weather forecast and wondering, should I winterize my irrigation system? What's the transformers say on the clock out there? Do I need to adjust those things? These are the things that a responsible homeowner takes note of and makes sure they either document it or they remember it, or that Saturday morning you're checking it because this is what you're going to do on that Saturday morning, is you're going to pay attention to those things as part of your weekly landscape maintenance. All of this results in you protecting the huge investment of your home and your yard that you work so hard and pay your taxes to keep. So why not make it the best you possibly can with the resources and the time that you have available to you? I'm not saying you have to be out there and pulling every single weed and raking every single leaf all the time. That's not realistic for busy families. But you can go out and you can do little tasks and keep up on it and share the load occasionally. You know, if somebody is out doing it all the time, invite the other one out and make it a team effort. Maestro and I, the most glorious job that we've had this summer, and one of the last landscape maintenance projects we did was pulling out and getting rid of as much as possible all the cattail in the pond. It was literally starting to take over because there's so much silt and debris on the bottom of the pond that the cattails just go nuts every single year. So for 3 days we were down there, and we did it as a team effort. I'd get in that pond, and we went out and got a cheap rope, and I got in the pond and I just started pulling cattail and cattail root as much as possible. I would lasso it up and Maestro would pull it to the opposite shore where we can get the tractor now because of the bridge, and we'll load that up, put it in the tarp pickup, and take it to the dumps. Cattails do not burn, so I cannot make a burn pile out of it. Tried that last year, does not work. Sat there for 9 months, tried to burn it, does not burn. I won't ever do it again. So green waste, over to the dump and take care of it. I also did a little bit of creek maintenance on the Little Brook that comes into the pond because it had filled in and had become so ugly. I pulled the culvert out. It's going to go to the dump as well. And I took some of the gravels and rock that I got for the driveway and dressed it up over there. And yesterday, I was happy to report going out there in the morning, and what I did was working. You know, the creek was flowing kind of semi-straight, staying in the channel that I created. And then a couple of the log things that I have, the water was tumbling over the log and into the pond. And it actually looked pretty good. It was kind of neat to see. Kind of cleaned it up. Spent about an hour and a half doing it. It wasn't super hard, but it's one of those little things that you go, you know what I got to do? I got to, so check, okay? So that was on my pocket computer. Work on Little Brook coming into the pond. Same with the cattails thing. Same with the bridge, same with the deck, same with the garden boxes. That's been on the list for the past 2 months. And now I've, a little bit at a time, have checked those things off. So I will leave you today with those refreshing thoughts about don't forget about the yard. You know, keep your eye on that landscape ball and get it all the way to full dormancy. Make sure that you've taken care of lighting and irrigation systems. And I will see you guys next week. As always, to your landscape success, I'll say goodbye for now. Don't forget the website. Take care.